Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnackit.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnackit.sbnation.com.
This is the Black Gold Banneret Podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Jeff Sharon and Eric Lopez.
Welcome to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon and Eric Lopez with you once again. And Kyle Nash joining us here on this show on what is it was a bittersweet first round weekend for UCF women's basketball. They break so many barriers in that first game and come so close to beating UConn and Storrs and reaching the Sweet 16 in a game that, well, you know what? We'll compare that to men's basketball from 3 years ago.
Oh God, let's not do that.
I think
it's
fair.
That is ridiculous. Let's not on the anniversary.
I'm not done with the intro yet.
No. I'm not gonna insult the Duke UCF game by comparing what we watched WrestleMania on Monday night. All right,
we will talk about that. We will talk about some men's basketball news. Isaiah Adams announcing that he's going to transfer out of UCF's program. We'll talk about the effect that will have on UCF. We will also catch you up on all the different sports with Bryson Turner and Eric Lopez. Our second segment is going to be all you and me because we're going to preview this massive UCF softball series coming up.
The rivalry.
The unstoppable force meets the immovable object. It's going to be a wild weekend. It's going to be a
Don't ruin it, Eric Burris. It better be played.
All right. But first, let's get the student of the game up in here, Kyle Nash, to talk about UCF women's hoops. First of all, let's start with the good. First round game against Florida took care of business in that 7-10. The Knights get their first ever victory in the NCAA tournament over the Gators, 69-52, in a game where they really got out-rebounded pretty heavy in this game, and still just curb stomped Florida in the end. I thought that was a lot of fun to watch, and that set up the game with UConn, a game that was. You got off to that great start in the first quarter at 18-12, and then you score 12 points in the middle two quarters, and still have a shot. It was looking bleak there for a while, Kyle. Down 12, and then the last second run happens, and UCF gets within, I believe, what was it, 3? Got within one basket at the end of the game before just the misses at the foul line. They just could not overcome. And that was the end of the season, 52-47. We saw the players and the coaches welcomed back at the venue the day after. It was bittersweet to say the least, because this team was good enough. This was a Sweet 16 team. I really do believe that. I will die on that hill. It's just that they got put in a crappy bracket with UConn, and this would have been a good Elite Eight matchup, wouldn't it have been, Kyle?
I think so. Let me put it this way, Jeff. There's a lot of hills you die on that don't make any sense to me. Powder blue is a terrible color. I still
Attaboy, Niall. Attaboy.
I'll die on that hill too, but carry on.
However, as far as hills to die on go, sir, it would practically be a mass grave, my friend. There are many people who will believe and agree with you right along with that. First of all, I got to protect my guy, Eric Burris, who I marched with at UCF. He's just the messenger, Eric. Leave him alone. And second, I'll put it to you this way, man. When I got the coach up there railing on how bad the bracket placement was, not just for her team, but her opponent as well. Listen, if you're going to have one person die on a hill with you, Coach Abe is a good one there to have, Jeff. That's why you definitely got to be led to slide, whether I agree with you or not, which, oh, by the way, I happen to. The point's already been made about Florida teams playing each other in the first bracket. Bothers me a little less because there were so many of them, 6 teams. It's statistically more.
Yeah, they just so happen to pair 4 of them up together. What a coincidence! Hey, let's just fly them together.
Elu needs a hug, and I'm here for you.
We'll get into the NCAA. We'll get into the NCAA later.
Eric, you'll have your chance to flame the NCAA in a second. Okay?
I got my popcorn right down here to watch it. It's all good. And listen, you mentioned a couple things. Jeff, that I want to address too. So you mentioned something about getting out rebounded a bit by Florida. Well, here's the thing. If you're getting to the foul line, you don't have the opportunity to snag a rebound. And in that game, UCF did a pretty good job getting to the line and making their shots. Conversely, in the UConn game, that didn't happen. You addressed that. They got to the line. They didn't make anything. And I'm going to say this right out the gate. It was addressed by Coach Abe as something that affected both sides. She's absolutely right. Say what you will about UCF getting calls. UConn had 2 players foul out. Those 2 post players fouling out was certainly a big part of the push to get so close in the fourth quarter as they did. And, UConn did the same thing, taking advantage of Brittany Smith, Masani Kamba, and Destiny Thomas all seeing some sort of foul trouble throughout that second and third quarter area. So, it happened. Both teams took advantage. I think that's why you kind of had that slide whistle of a lead throughout the game. 1 minute.
But they overcame that.
They did. Well, both teams overcame a pretty big lead if you look at it. And here's the thing. Listen, we addressed the free throws. Here's the difference, gentlemen. I'll get specific with it. If you miss half your free throws, that's 10 points you left on the thing. But let's say they make half of them, and that's 5 points. Suddenly it's an overtime game. A. B. In the second half, we could talk about UConn being juggernauts and all this all we want, and UCF only scoring, air quotes, 12 points in the second and third quarter, because that's what happened. However, what isn't being remembered is how many field goals UConn actually scored. It was like 2, I believe, in the entire second quarter.
They were 2 for 7 in the second quarter.
9 free throw points, 9 points in the second quarter, all on free throws. Now, you can gripe about the officiating all you want. There's plenty to gripe about. I heard Eric say something about WrestleMania. Well, there was certainly a lot of acting going on that was about on par with it. Let's put it this way.
That's what I'm saying, bro. Hey, we were in the state of Connecticut. That's where WWE headquarters are, man. I'm just saying.
Great point by you. And hey, listen, at this point, John Cena is certainly a better actor than some of these ladies. I mean, he worked opposite Idris Elba and is now the head of a series, okay? These ladies need a lot more acting practice if they want their own series. Say that as you will, though. The situation is thus that if you make your foul shots when you get there, all of that is done. The academy isn't involved, then you're into the next round. So even over above all the talk of stuff they can't control with if they're in a different bracket,
or maybe the refs would have called more weird lane violations too.
Well, I have this on. Dan Forcella, to his credit, reached out to me. He said that was a correct call because Brittany Smith. That's the one that everyone's kind of looking at. And I didn't know that was a rule.
Are they calling it a double clutch?
They called it a double clutch.
All right. I mean,
Connecticut's bench, Gino, and from what I was told from people that were there, Gino and the Connecticut bench yelled exactly that. And that got the refs' attention because they always listen to what Gino has to say.
Okay, because they didn't need Gino's attention to call that.
Here's where I disagree with Dan. If you flip that, they're not calling that on UConn. They're not calling that on UConn at all. That never gets called.
I disagree.
It never gets called.
That's a.
When have you seen it called? Where have you seen it called? It never gets called.
That was the first time I've ever seen it called because that's the first time. That's the first time I've ever seen
it happened in other games.
I've never seen that happen in other,
especially in the men's. Here's the bottom line. In today's, we record this. It's the anniversary of one of the greatest college basketball games ever played, and UCF Duke. Brian Murphy, shout out to you. He was in attendance. Says it's the greatest sporting event he's ever covered. And yet, UCF, you felt pain. It was a painful experience if you're a UCF fan with the way the game ended. This game should have won. This game was the complete opposite. This was a train wreck. It was an awful officiated game. It was a poorly played game. It was a poorly broadcasted game. And if you're UCF, you feel great. You feel great. It was fantastic. It was the best case scenario. You ugly up the game. You mucked it up. You kept it competitive. And you feel good about yourself. That's the takeaway. You were never going to win this game. It was never going to happen.
I disagree.
Women's basketball needs. It was never going to happen. UConn always was going to win this
game. It was
never had a shot. Did they ever lead? Did they ever lead? Did they ever lead in the game? No, not in the second half. Not in the second half. They never led.
You're backtracking.
They were never going to win this game. This was always going to be a UConn win because they need UConn to advance. No sport is more desperate to need a team than UConn. Where is the Sweet 16?
Are you saying? Hang on a second, Eric Lopez. Are you saying the game was fixed?
I'm saying that the refs always favor UConn
or no?
In that building.
Are you saying the game was fixed?
I'm saying that they were going to get the calls no matter what because they always do.
You're not answering my question.
Wait! Don't take my word. Don't take my word for it. Don't take my word for it. Let's play the clip. Play Coach Abe after the game right now.
I told them, keep your head up. You are warriors. You are a great team. You deserved. A better place to go play. Why would they brought us back up here? And I think this is a great program. But I don't know why we had to come back and play them again for the 6th time, 7th time, the 100th time. Like, it's just so, maybe if we were at any different place, we could have maybe advanced. I don't think anybody in the country wanted to come here and play in the NCAA tournament. So, neither did I. But we fought, and, to me, we're just as good of a team as they are. So
she agreed with me. Thank you, Coach Abe. Thank you for being honest. If they were in any other regional, they would have had a shot. But she knew. She knew.
That's also because but that's also because they were stuck in a region with a team that had Paige Becker's not gotten hurt. UConn is a 1 seed. I'm convinced of that.
Gentlemen, I need to throw a quick timeout in here. And Elo, you're well-meaning, and there is some element of truth to what you're saying. But to say they didn't have a shot at all after
never had a shot.
Excuse me. After they busted
the refs were never going to give them a shot. They were never.
Don't shoot free throws, Elo. If they make,
did they get? Wait!
Make their percentage.
Who got the big? Who predicted?
No, the numbers kill you here.
Did I not? Okay, no, I agree that they can't play. At the end of the day, you got to make your free throws. However, did I not say before the game? Did I not say, Kyle, that Brittany Smith and Cabo are going to get in foul trouble? Did I not say that? Why is that,
sir? Don't put yourself on the island up in this piece.
The refs were going to make sure.
It made sense that Desto got in foul trouble, but they had 2 bigs foul out. Okay, at some point.
Oh, I agree.
Do not take away.
I agree.
Do not take away from these ladies the butt that they did kick and the effort they made by saying it was an inevitable.
Oh, they played hard.
Because they made it possible.
But it was inevitable.
No, it wasn't.
They made it competitive. They made it competitive. They made it competitive. I'm sorry. Did they not advance? Did they not win?
If they made
where is the Sweet 16 regional held?
Okay. Is 6 more than 5, Elo? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, but that's.
What is
it's bracketed also? By the way, let's
60% of 10, Elo, 6, right?
I would have, and then UConn would have probably found 6 more free throws. That's probably what would have happened.
Okay. Well, now
where is the Sweet 16 being held at? Where is UConn playing this weekend?
And it's the ESPN headquarters.
I'm muting you, Eric.
I get all that. It's the ESPN. All the stuff that was an impact on this game surely was. You're arguing the wrong point, brother. You're hitting things I already agree with you on. But at the end of the day, That's my hyped up hypel impression from the 1-0 show. But at the end of the day,
I love that.
They could have gone 1-0. No, but the opportunity that was there, gentlemen, impossible. Listen, I felt the same way before the game, but the ladies made it. Maybe not probable, but the long shot was there. And you have to give them that credit because they deserve it.
Oh, they out-hustled him. They outworked him. They outplayed him in a lot of ways. I think they outcoached him in a lot of ways. They did everything. They did everything perfectly, except offensively, they didn't move the basketball. To your point, Kyle, let's get to the X's and O's. They didn't move the basketball as crisp as they normally do. They were little. They kind of played to kind of shorten the game with the shot
This
clock.
is where I disagree with the both of you because
what a shocker!
UConn,
because
the reason why we couldn't move the ball very well is because UConn's an incredible defensive team. They are not just big, they are fast, and they are long. They get into passing lanes. They are the best team in the country at getting into passing lanes. There's a reason Gino recruits the way that he does is because everybody on that team is long and big, and there are hands everywhere.
Yeah, he's got McDonald blue chippers. He better have blue chippers.
But that's why. I mean, we're saying, UCF didn't move the ball as though it was.
Yeah, but you still
fault.
have to move the basketball. You can't just play afraid. You can't play tentative.
I think no. If there's one thing you cannot accuse UCF of doing in this game, it's playing afraid.
No, I think they played is conservative. Go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, listen, your point is great about length and all that. I was sure they had Brittany Buckets neutralized in the first half, and they did, and then she came alive. Okay. It's more, I think, where I think more people needed to move to the ball. And frankly, I felt that way a lot. There's just some times where there's some iffy passes that they could get away with in other places. You're not getting away with it with this group. And you're correct, Jeff, 100%. But if you move to the basketball and help the point guard out in delivering the ball, or if it's Destiny Thomas at the top, who they normally use for a reset to find somebody, they definitely trying to. I'll bring up Vlade Divac because he's an element of important in both teams here. For those who
Speaking of flopper,
hey, don't kill the damn punchline, Elo. I'm telling the story. But yeah, Elo's right. For the UConn side, he was definitely flopping. For the UCF side, bigs were making crisp passes to get them back in the game in that long stretch. All right.
Yeah.
Tay Sanders had 10 points. 3 of them was what made that fourth quarter run come alive, getting a pass from Masani Kaba, right? Destiny Thomas is usually used as the reset player to pass and distribute to reset the play. And it usually leads to points when people move to her to give her an opportunity to distribute the basketball. And flopper was where I was going to go with UConn. Absolutely, bro. You're completely right. I was just mad you killed the punchline.
I think the stretch that hurts, like everyone looks at that free throw that Britt got. What did she do? Did she miss it and then got called for the violation?
No, she made that.
She made the first one. But
no, I'm sorry. She missed the first one, but
missed the first one, then made the second one, but got called for the violation, which would have made it a 2-point game. That wasn't the stretch that hurt. What hurt was at 3:04 left in the fourth quarter. Britt made a jumper to make it 48-43.
Mm-hmm.
And then UCF held UConn to 4 consecutive stops.
Mm-hmm. I know where you're going.
And couldn't get a bucket on the other end.
Including an in and out from Masani.
Yeah. It was missed jumper by Britt in the paint, 2 missed free throws by Britt, and then an offensive rebound by Tay, and then she missed the layup.
Mm-hmm.
Missed jumper by Moss with under 2 minutes to go.
That's the in and out I'm talking about.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, it was right. And listen, credit to UConn. It's not like those shots were wide open, right? But
oh yeah,
you just don't hold UConn empty on 4 straight trips in the fourth quarter of the game.
I don't think anyone here is arguing that UConn is a bad basketball team either. Listen, Paige.
No, they're not.
Paige Buchers hit a 3 with, I think it was like, I want to say 11 minutes left or something. That could very well, or they would put them up by 11. I forget the exact time that we thought, talking in our text, might have been the dagger. We were wrong.
It wasn't a 3. She had a 2 that made it a 12-point game, 48-36 with
maybe
4:52 left. You're probably thinking of when Kristen Williams hit a three to make it 44-33 with 7.5.
No, it was Paige that made the shot. Maybe she stepped on the line. But the punchline is this.
Yeah, it was a long two. It was a long two.
And give Kristen give Kristen her credit. I believe she was the one that dished the no-look pass. If it wasn't Fudd, I forget which one of the two was, but the no-look pass was beautiful.
It was Fudd who made the steal, or actually it was Nelson Adota who got the assist on that jumper pipe. Anyways,
no, I'm talking about a different play, but there's a no-look pass for a layup that was also absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Again, UConn is a competent basketball team. Let's not say they didn't earn anything, but to Eric's credit, when you're already that much of a juggernaut, you're at home essentially because people can't write brackets worth of crud. And I know they should have been a 1 because injuries. Yeah. Okay, great. Who else gets that allowance, to Eric's point? And then, oh, by the way, you're also in the home state of the worldwide leader and every else that's the center.
You're in a state where they care about the sport. You have 14,000 people. You can make money off of these people. Because, oh, by the way,
basketball world.
They're going to be hosting the Sweet 16, even though they're a 2 seed. They're hosting in Bridgeport. That's a joke. That is a travesty. But it's going to stay that way.
Combined, I like that.
A Travis mockery. What was that line?
Mockery is what it is. It's a joke. That's why women's basketball will never be taken seriously, because it's the UConn Invitational. They're always going to benefit UConn. Just like, by the way, Mike Krzyzewski and Duke is going to get calls from here on out. Refs are influenced in no other sport more than college basketball by coaches. That's a fact. Doesn't mean it's rigged. It just means they favor big name coaches. And Gino is at the top of that list. This is his sport. It's his rules. And until he retires, it's going to stay that way, because they went back to on campus. Because Kyle, I know you have a problem with being on campus for the first 2 rounds, correct?
Yeah, I'll put it this way. Being on campus is easier for me if it's possible. But no, it being a home affair in that case is absolutely ridiculous, if I'm answering your question.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because Mark Daniels asked Terry Mohajir that very question on the Beat of Sports on Tuesday. And Terry Mohajir had an interesting answer. Here it is.
Want a definition of irony?
Yeah.
I used to be on the championships cabinet for the NCAA, and I was a big advocate for moving the first and second round back to campuses. And so my wife said the same thing to me. Well, shouldn't they be at neutral sites? The reason why we did that at the time, we started looking at costs of the NCAA. Yeah. And the women's basketball tournament was costing about $20 million a year. And a lot of it had to do with neutral site, first and second round neutral site games. And there wasn't any attendance at those games. And so I was one of a group of people on this committee. It no longer exists anymore, but it's called the NCAA Championships Cabinet, that you basically kind of governed all the championships. And we thought it'd be better to go back to campuses, give the high seeds, because it was done that way in the 90s, and we had a lot of good attendance, and teams would make money, schools would make money, and it wasn't a huge cost for the NCAA, and it gave the higher seeds an advantage to play at home, just kind of like conference tournaments in football, So, but at the end of the day, you fast forward, 8-9 years later, and then it affects you, and you start thinking, well, maybe a neutral site would be good. But again, if you play that game in, let's just say, Kansas City, you're not going to have the atmosphere that you have there. So, I mean, it works both ways. And when we get to the point where we're a high enough seed, and we will get to there, we're going to have a great atmosphere in our place, and we're going to reap the benefits of that decision.
So that was Terry Mohajir, who was part of the committee that approved and pushed for the women's basketball tournament to be moved back to on campus for the first couple of rounds, because they were losing a ton of money when they were on neutral courts because there was nobody in the building. Ironic. That's Big 12 initiative, by the way.
I mean,
but,
now.
So I don't think that's going to change, to his point.
Well, no, it's not going to change because, I think our point of views are a little skewed on that one because, as you know, Eric, It's like that in every sport except men's basketball. Right?
Right, because people
First couple rounds
men's
played at
basketball
home
is
site.
popular. Right.
So,
and even men's basketball has quietly, like, Duke got to play in their backyard in Greenville, South Carolina. That's a drive. Like, Gonzaga's playing, for example, in Portland the first couple rounds. So even the men's has kind of done a little bit of a pod system. I'm okay with it. You got to reward higher seeds to reward them. Otherwise, the regular season's pointless.
but they do get a reward playing lesser teams. But anyway.
Tell that to Gonzaga had to play Memphis in the first round, or Baylor had to play North Carolina. Speaking of bad officiating, the men's side is just as bad officiating. Good Lord. Get some clues, officials. Get a rule book. You clowns. Anyway, but here's the bottom line. You guys, look, they played hard. You could say they had a chance. But Mark Daniels and I have had this experience. Mark Daniels has had this experience in Tallahassee. I've had this experience in softball in Tallahassee and Gainesville. You're not going to get the benefit of the doubt by the officials in those games. Why? Because these officials want to work marquee events. Why? Because if they work at UConn and they do well, they get paid more money. They get paid more money in these regions. That's how this works. And until that gets fixed, the obscurity of the officiating going in favor of certain schools ain't going to change. And that's why UCF was never going to have a shot to win this game.
Well, there's plenty to that. But I feel like I have to make this point more clear. Jeff, guys, offhand, I'm forgot to look it up, and I can't do it offhand here during the pod. Do either of you have a good handle on what the UCF women's free throw percentage generally is?
70% for the season. 70%.
70% for the season.
So you're telling me,
but they did have not.
Go ahead.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I was going to say they had nine games where they shot 60% or worse, including the Tennessee game that you covered where they shot under 50%.
Okay, right. but I think let me take what Kyle's point is saying. If they shot their season percentage of 70%, that's 4 more points on the board, right?
I mean,
sure. I mean, if they don't turn the ball over less, they win. I mean, that's a lot of ifs, but that's sports.
Well,
I mean, it's a lot harder shooting a free throw. It's a lot harder shooting free throws in the second round in front of 10,000 people that are cussing you out like those classless UConn fans were than shooting in November, against, Princeton or whoever, like scrub a U.
I mean, I don't mean
had a pretty good scoring defense this year, by the way, but carry on.
I don't mean to comment on you clutching your pearls there, Eric, but that has happened at other student sections as well, ours included. That being said, no, man, and listen, this isn't me taking away from your point of all the stuff they had stacked against them, because at the end of the day, gentlemen, say what you will, the fact that a win was even in reach mathematically, statistically, whatever you want to call the point that I'm making, is something that is yet another element of history that this team has made.
Oh, for sure. I don't disagree with that. But I'm thinking, I feel for Coach Abe, because I think Coach Abe knows deep down, if they're in Waco, Texas, if they play Baylor, who lost to South Dakota. If I'm Abe, I'm like, are you kidding me? South Dakota beat Baylor? We could have beaten Baylor.
Dude,
that's the thing.
I'm convinced UCF could have beaten Baylor by double digits.
What about Tennessee? A game, they almost lost theirs.
They almost lost to Belmont on their home floor.
Tennessee was a 4. Iowa lost to Creighton. LSU lost to Ohio State. That's what frustrates Abe, because she did say in the presser, guys, this might be the best UCF team they ever have. Like, it's not that easy to build this up when you consider the extra year with COVID and all that. I'm not saying they're not going to be good next year or beyond, but her point is this is a unique team. It is. It's the greatest team they've ever had. And I think we could have been a Sweet 16 team if they sent us anywhere but this place, which it was funny. I talked to somebody close to the program before on Selection Sunday, and we said either UCF or USF was going to get sent there, and they were, because the committee are a bunch of schmucks. And that's why I owe an apology to you, Kyle, and all of you bowl people, which I have been critical of. I will now refrain. I want to keep the bowl system. I don't want a playoff expansion anymore, because clearly these committees have no clue how to make selections. So props to bowl, because you treat the media correctly, unlike the NCAA does.
Oh my God.
Well, thank you for that.
Really
I apologize.
That does make me feel.
Yeah,
I have 2 questions. I think I know the answer to the first one. This is the greatest UCF women's basketball team of all time.
Oh yeah. Not even close. It's
let's talk about 26-4, 14-1 in the conference. Won the double. First time that's happened since 1999.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's any. I mean, what other team comes close? Probably that 99 team, but that was in the A-Sun.
You have plenty.
No, 19. Probably the 19 team is pretty good.
You have plenty of credible people who agree with you, because the following people answered thus when I said, "Hey, can I use the word iconic?" Masani Kaba, Diamond Battles, A. Sanders, Brittany Smith, and the one who's least likely to agree with this but did, Coach Katie Abrahamson Henderson.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you that. Now I'm going to ask you this. Let's start with the players. Who do we know is gone? Who do we know is coming back? Diamond Battles, I think, has announced she is returning.
That is official, 100%.
100%. That's ironclad. Diamond's back.
Right.
All right. So we know who I already forget who walked on senior day. I know Britt did.
Britt did walk. She's on the fence from what I hear, but
she wants to become a nurse. I know, and listen, my wife's a nurse. That's hard
too. What was for 40 years?
Yes. So like if Britt wants to, if she wants to dive in, she wants to call it a day in basketball and go into nursing. God bless her. Go for it. We need more nurses.
Hey, I'll give her my mom's number if she needs some tips. I'll be like, hey, help Brittany buckets out. Come on.
Right. My wife as well.
Right.
So Britt, if you're listening, yes. I'm looking at the roster right now. And I'm trying to arrange it by my computer's always slow when it looks at this roster for some
It's always a reminder, though. Last week we went through this with the men, and since then 4 players left. So in this era, who knows?
Well, I mean, some of them are expected, some of them weren't. We'll get to them in the last segment. But here's your 5th years and seniors. Now, Tay Sanders, Tay's done. Right.
She's done.
Yeah. Moss is done.
Yep.
Becca Ripley's done, although she was a bench contributor. Alicia Lewis is listed as a junior. Is she coming back?
I'll put it this way. There's no reason for me to believe she's leaving. I've counted her as coming back so far.
Okay.
We've not really had much an opportunity to talk to Lish one-on-one, so I can't really make a read. But there's no good reason for her to leave at this point, I would dare say. She was a huge contributor, and frankly, they'll need her as leadership for the developing group, I would say.
Yeah. Janaea Walker did not play this year because of an injury. She's listed as a 5th year. I'm guessing she's redshirting. Is that right?
I've not heard, but that makes sense.
Okay. The other redshirt seniors listed on, obviously Britt's listed as a senior.
Mm-hmm.
Neela Luma, who got 9 minutes of work because of the foul trouble in the UConn game, and I thought actually held the Tide back pretty well.
Excellent.
In that game, is listed as a redshirt senior. I don't think she walked on senior day.
Luma, no, I did not see her on senior.
Okay. And then, so she might have a COVID year still lined up. And then Shania Mertens, who was a really good defensive player. I don't think that was talked about enough in that 2-guard slot.
So an essential reason in beating Florida down, because they dared her to shoot and do things and to try to cover up UCF's star players, and I can do that. So between assists and her points, she had double-digit contribution in the Florida game for sure.
Right. So you've still got a pretty good core of people coming back. You've got, obviously, Diamond, which we talked about. Asia Todd should be healthy again. She's going to be a key shooter as well. Hopefully Lish comes back as well. And Janaea, who saw plenty of action the year before she got hurt, and I thought was very good. We know about Desto.
I want to see what her offseason is like, because if she turns over a leaf, she could be Moss. She may not score 1,000 points, but she could be a Masani Kaba light. There we go.
We've talked. No doubt she wins the most improved player award, doesn't she?
I mean, how many double-doubles did she have? I counted 3 on the season.
Yeah, and you got to be impressed with that. And then we look at the recruits. Obviously, Savannah Henderson is coming in. was already on the roster.
Mm-hmm.
3 more really intriguing signees for Coach Abe back in November. This is where we get to now. Fatima Diakate. 6'5" center from Montverde Academy.
I'm glad you said her last name because I was struggling with reading it. Diacante. Yeah, no, that's impressive. Her and Desto and Elaine, damn.
That's going to be a problem, especially when you line them up also with Amaya Evans from Tampa from DME Academy, who's a 6'1" forward. And we've talked about Savannah Henderson. Obviously, Savannah is listed as a 6'1" guard. And then the player who folks on the staff have told me that she's already better now than both Diamond and KK Wright were coming in. Stephanie Ingram, point guard from Lake Highland Prep. She intrigues me. She really does intrigue me, especially when if she's going to be, if she is to Diamond as Diamond was to KK, like this.
If she can shine like the Diamond.
Yeah. No, this is going to be something. Now here's where I want to bring the both of you in on this one. Every time we have a good season in any sport, what immediately happens? What's going to happen with the coach? There are some very intriguing openings out there in Division I basketball right now. Notably, two. I think you really 3. Eric, I think you said that you want to that we should keep an eye on. Illinois, Florida State, and Georgia. Obviously, Florida State in an in-state job. They're familiar with what Coach Abe has been doing. Illinois, Coach Abe has roots in the Midwest. Played at Iowa. Also in the Big Ten. And then also Coach Abe played at Georgia her first 2 years in college under Andy Landers. That job is open now. I hate this because it gives me that pit feeling in my stomach, right? I mean, it's just after you see such a great season, you see so much potential going forward. But of course, now the calculation for a coach about leaving is different because you got that Big 12 tag on the horizon, whereas before you didn't. So I'll put it to the two of you this way, and Eric, I'll start with you, and Kyle, I'll give you the last word. What are the percentage odds, 0 to 100%, that Coach Abe returns to UCF for next season?
I would say 60% she returned.
60%.
I think she'll. Yeah, but I think she'll listen. You have to. If you're anybody in that situation, would listen.
Oh yeah,
especially Georgia, where she played there. Now we don't know. You know, she left. She transferred to go back to Iowa. My theory, from what because I think she wanted to be back home. But obviously, she's talked about Coach Landers a lot. At Georgia, who's a very
influential person. She is an admirer of Coach Landers, as a lot of people. I covered Coach Landers toward the end there at Georgia.
Right.
Just a dude of all dudes. Just a great coach and a great human.
Right. And that job is open because the Georgia coach just left for Texas A&M. That job, the coach was making $835,000, which is a lot of money. So you listen, because that's
although to be fair, like how does you're talking about a lateral move in the SEC.
I disagree. It's not a lateral move. You're going to the SEC, which has way more resources, more money.
No. I'm not saying Coach Abe would be. But I'm saying I'm saying the Georgia coach left. That's a lateral move, which tells me Georgia's program might be in a pretty weak spot.
Well, there's that big question. You know this. Can you win in basketball in the state of Georgia? Because they don't care. They care about football. So that's the big question. Georgia there. But she played there. So she's going to get a phone call. Doesn't mean she'll accept. Illinois, obviously, Big Ten situation there. Florida State. I think Florida State's going to try to keep that in the family, personally. But you never know what they're thinking over there. The big thing here, and I think we always get caught up in the coach's contract and the salaries. And we forget this, Kyle. Coaches will use leverage, not necessarily for their own gain, but to make sure that their staff around them is taken care of. And I think that's the key this time around. Coach Abe has leverage. She's going to make, no matter what decision she makes, it's going to be a good decision. It's good to be her. But she's going to make sure that not only she's taken care of, but she's going to definitely make sure that her staff around her is taken care of, because that staff's been together for a long time, Kyle.
Yeah.
100%. 100%.
So Kyle, I throw the question to you, your percentage odds that we see Coach Abe on the sidelines at UCF next season.
So my percentage odds, 60. I'm surprised Elo came out with 60. I thought you'd have a lower number. Good on you for adopting a bit of optimism here, my man. You're enjoying it's more likely to happen than not, and I respect that. I say that jokingly, of course. I'm closer to 75 or 80, and let me tell you why. For one, every time Coach Abe refers to herself as having played, it's always Iowa. I have never heard her mention, hey, I used to play at Iowa and Georgia. That's not how it goes. When I've asked questions.
Right. The only time she brings it up is Landers. Right.
Yeah.
Right. The only time opportunities I've had to ask about SEC basketball to her would have been post the Tennessee game, which would have been my first press conference with her. So, okay, that might have been somewhat limited my ability to gauge information. Fair. By the way, what a way to start one, a big game that you feel like you should have won. And here I am. So, Coach, how do you think but she was, of course, a true professional. And then Arkansas, the reverse layup beauty for the game winner by Diamond Battles. Mood's a lot better. I have a few more press conferences under my belt at that point too, right? And in talking to her, whenever I mentioned the aspect of coming with the SEC, she respected it, but it didn't feel like it had the same gravity playing the SEC. She
respected it. She didn't revere it.
Correct. However, when other conferences and reverence come up, the one she's about to play to in the next 1 to 2 years is one she shows respect for. Now, is that coaching marketing? Maybe, but I think there's a little bit more to it than that as well. And the fact that it's a legit basketball conference. Okay. I could argue that we could be having this conversation next year, and a factor is Mike Oresco more than anything else. But all that aside, the final. Oh, and by the way, Elo, her respect for women's basketball in Florida. We've talked about it on this show.
Absolutely.
How Florida doesn't get enough respect on
the recruiting. Yep.
Right. Yeah. For women's basketball. And Coach Abe's talked about it big. We've talked about it big because she mentioned it. She clearly enjoys being in this state from a recruiting standpoint and the strength of the sport in the state. Yeah, of course it's football first. Let's not get ridiculous, but the amount of leverage they have compared to other states.
She likes the pipeline here. Absolutely.
Yeah. And last, but certainly not least, gentlemen, I don't mean to be this guy, but I'm going to play a card that maybe might think is out of bounds. I don't know. But who was the one that enrolled early on the roster?
That would be Savannah Henderson.
Her daughter. I really think she wants to coach her daughter.
Well, I don't think that's but I mean, players transfer all the time, especially now. It's so easy. So I don't know if I would put stock into that, but I do think Florida, they both like the state of Florida and the living here, and the fact they're going to the Big 12 helps. I think if the Big 12 was not in the picture, we might have a different conversation right now.
I think that's absolutely right.
Yeah, I'm putting these things as a combination of items rather than just
absolutely. Agreed.
For my money, if we were in that parallel universe and you were telling me it can't be the only thing, I'm not here to tell you it's ironclad, but again, hearing the language she uses when she talks about these topics lets me go do my little Sherlock Holmes impression. And basically, I just don't feel like she's going to leave at this point. Now, next year, if the American has slacked or I should say, continued to hold transferring schools hostage, I'll put it that way, and somebody else of that ilk. I know you guys are still jaded by Scott Frost, by the way. That's why you're worried about former schools and all that.
I'm good, man. I'm good.
Not you two necessarily.
Scott Frost ain't the only one, but okay.
But I think the question what we don't know is what is quote unquote her dream job? What is her dream job? That's the question. And we don't know that. And we don't know. Like, for example, if Iowa was the one that would open, I think there'd be a lot more concern, to your point, because she has talked about Iowa at length, and it wouldn't be the first time we've lost a coach to Iowa. So, in fact, she has a lot of friends in that program over there in that school. So, that's the part that we don't know. And I don't believe, to your point, Kyle, I don't think Georgia qualifies as a dream job.
Right. Also a good point too. But, and we're down to another thing is see, and that's the thing. A money bump in women's basketball doesn't mean as much as it does in football too, guys. Like, A money bump in football is a matter of millions. A money bump in women's basketball, percentage-wise, will not be a matter of millions. So the value of that move is thus less because economics. And, you know, we don't want to get into the weeds of whether that's fair or not. That's just the state of the world. And I say all that to say, perhaps she values building something up to be historic potentially over the money as well. That's another aside.
Oh, I think there's truth to right. I don't think she's not doing this for money. Now, she is doing this to take care of her staff, and I think that's what a coach should do, is taking care of the loyalty there. And I think that's fair.
The reason why she's going to take the calls, and you put this up nice, but I want to make it clear for the people listening how this is going to go. This isn't about necessarily her wanting to actually move. This is going to be, hey, I got this call. I went to Timo. I said, listen, this call says I can do this for my assistants. Can you match it? In the press, that plays great because all UCF can do if they call her bluff is look bad. So, you know, this is what.
And she wants us to, obviously. And by the way, we've spent so much time, way too much time, talking about the men's basketball and the budgets and the resources and the limited, all that. That applies to women's basketball too. Let's not kid, especially when you move over to the Big 12. Terry Mohajir, that's why he came out with his presentation this week.
Yeah, Mission 12. Listen, if you're concerned about like the amount of money that you need to pay really good coaches to keep them around, check out that Mission 12 presentation from Terry Mohajir because, and I'm looking at it right now. The whole,
absolutely.
I mean, it's. The numbers are stark when you compare UCF to the remainder of the Big 12, and that means the fan base and the donors have got to step it up. You know, it's bottom line. And you know what? We're not alone. Houston's got to do it too. Cincinnati's got to do it too. We three new entrants that are public schools, right? God knows what BYU's bringing to the table. We are the three lowest in the Big 12, and we got to step it. And by the way, the TV contract, whatever that may be, as you know, Eric, a sizable portion of it, but not nearly enough.
Correct.
No, but I also think relationships have to be built. I don't think it's as simple as, hey, hand us some money. I mean, in fairness, yes, a lot of the young alumni don't donate to the school. You know why? Because they don't have money. You know, Kyle's a young buff. He's in his prime. He doesn't have money to donate right now. He's got kids. I'm young. I don't have kids. Money to donate. I try to donate, but not a lot. Houston does have people. They have a guy named Fertitta that can spend as much as he wants, and among others, and we don't have that yet. I think it takes time. The thing I like, not to kind of deviate, but I do like the fact that Terry mentioned that, hey, we're going to build all these facilities, but we're not just going to use this for game day. We need to use this for other nights that are not game days to make revenue. And I think that's smart. Like that football stadium should be used more than 6 or 7 times a year. It's ridiculous. So I actually like that.
If only we had another team that could play inside that facility and maybe pay us to play.
Yeah, we got to bring an NFL team. Yeah.
You know, I'm just saying.
Well, the problem is football doesn't work here, as we know already by history.
Actually, but follows Drew pretty well, but details.
Don't get me started.
I'm saying concerts. Let's get some concerts there. Let's get some sitcoms shows there. Let's get Kyle to perform in front of the stadium for us.
Why would you put sitcoms inside of football?
Jerry Seinfeld. I want Jerry Seinfeld to keep performing.
Oh, he means comedians.
Or whatever sitcom. Yeah, comedians. Yeah. Chris Rock. Give me some Chris Rock.
I'd go to a Chris Rock show at the dang bounce.
Hey, boy. That's what I'm saying. Let's get some Chris. They already got AEW coming to the arena. Let's get other, entertainments there, man. That's what we got to do. Become an entertainment global there.
I mean, the Globetrotters come into the arena. Why can't we get something like that in the stadium? I'm down, Elo.
Amen to that. Amen to that. So you get where I'm going with it. But hopefully, I think Abe will stay. I've heard from people that cover the SEC. They don't think she'll get that job because they don't believe her system works in the SEC. Whatever. Cool. If you say so. All right. Plus, I do think, here's the other aspect. In the Big 12, there's no Dawn Staley there. There's no Gino Auriemma. Kim Mulkey left. Mulkey left for LSU.
Dawn Staley is basically the Nick Saban of women's basketball right now.
So what you're trying to tell me is she could evolve past the Torchy Clark and get to another big figure level, huh?
Well, there was a wise person that made that comparison on the Banneret articles a little while back, just like some other wise man wrote this week about how a great guy, great looking guy, sharp dress guy, the best dressed media guy, the first ever women's basketball media guy to cover them and to lead them to the NCAA tournament, wrote about how they were an iconic team. You can read that right now in Black and Gold Banneret, courtesy of our very own Kyle Nash.
Right.
Oh my goodness!
How's that for? So we'll have to leave it right there. I tell you,
we're gonna end on me being handsome. Okay.
Yes. We're gonna listen. Really? You're going to be upset about that? Okay.
Oh, no, I just think it's I love it.
All right. When it's a lot of off-season intrigue now with this.
Just enjoy the great year. Man, let's not worry about the future. Let's enjoy the year.
You know what, Eric? I would love to, but you know something? It is literally our job to have anxiety over this. You know, it's just
speak for yourself. I slept well
all the time.
Look at the bright side. Yeah.
I was going to say, what's the worst case scenario? She moves on. This is a pretty coveted job, is it not?
We'll see.
I mean,
I think she'll stay. I think at the end of the day, I think she stays.
I think she'll.
But I do think she'll get taken care of.
Yeah,
I think she'll get one way or the other. She's going to get taken care of by someone.
Get that bag.
She'll
get that bag, Coach Abe.
Get it, Kyle. Get in. Call Andrew Glukoff. Tell him to open up the wallet. Come on, let's go.
Oh wow. Hey, listen. For what it's worth, we have an episode officially where Elo is legislating stay positive. I'm taking that as a win.
Yeah, no. Let's get to the break right now while we have a chance. Right? Okay. Stay around when we come. By the way, follow Kyle the SOTG on Twitter. Kyle, you and I want to work together on some men's and women's basketball. Sort of way too early next season, wrap up this season kind of thing. This is going to be fun because I think we're getting a lot of talk in the off season about like where both programs really are.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm putting us. I'm holding our feet to the fire on this one.
Oh no, you're saying it on the show and it's official now. And once I can,
happening.
Once I can clear this week's spring football shenanigans,
we're gonna write.
What's that?
And we're gonna write. There's gonna be data and tables and information and
take that for data.
All the cool things that I like to do that Eric hates. So, I'm all about it. So we're beyond the.
Let's just make sure the coach is here before you write that. Let's just make sure the coach is here before you write that.
Yeah. All right.
That kind of might change your narrative.
The SOTG on Twitter, Kyle. Thanks. Appreciate
honor,
you,
joy, and privilege. Looking forward to working on that piece with you, Jeff. But until next time, everybody, class dismissed.
Don't go away when we're back. Eric and I preview. We're going to have a whole segment of softball, kids.
About time. It's long overdue.
Big series this weekend. Maybe, is it the biggest ever, Eric Lopez? We're going to find out. We got some big matchups. UCF against USF. War on I-4. Like I said, the immovable object meets the unstoppable force. We're going to preview that when we return. It's the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Back after this.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez with you. Okay, now, the student of the game, he didn't quite dismiss himself yet, so we got him around here for like one little more mini segment before we talk about softball.
You stayed after class to get educated.
I know. Well, a little extra credit. It's either extra credit or we're calling this after-school detention. So
no, it's study hall. There's no
okay. Here. All right, a little study hall because we want to talk about the men's program. And some news dropping in terms of the transfer portal. 3 guys have entered the transfer portal. Xavier Rhodes, Dre Fuller, who walked on senior day. That was expected.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that maybe wasn't expected but kind of was, Isaiah Adams.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the former Mr. Basketball in the state of Florida, last year all conference, or all freshman team in the conference, I should say. This year, for whatever reason, the bottom dropped out. His scoring dropped by more than 50%. His shooting percentage dropped by 12 percentage points. You could just see it washing out there. He was absolutely frustrated with his play at times. And at one point, Coach Dawkins, I think, did bench him for a game. He ended the season with some injury problems. I think it was an ankle injury that was bothering him. Just a bummer, and fans on Twitter are naturally self-immolating over this, but let's talk about those departures. I think and let's start with Isaiah, because that's obviously the big one. We all kind of talked about it, said, it's kind of feeling like it's not working out here, and lo and behold, it didn't, Kyle.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And let me be clear. I think Adams' transfer, and listen, I like the kid. I talked to him. He had me believing that he was going to break out going into this season. Now, obviously, we didn't see that. And I think part of that is because he was putting that on himself. I mean, the dude even snuck into the, Coach Dawkins press conference at Hoops Media Day and asked questions. Like, he was trying to be a personality for this team and be a big part of it. And that just simply didn't transpire. I mean, it wasn't all injury. I think it's, definitely the mental game. I think he put too much pressure on himself. And the reason why I feel like his transfer is a win for both sides is with him having an injury and taking that into the off season and having to concentrate to get back. Granted, not that it's a huge injury. It's not like he's going to be out for months, but anything that slows his ability to try to grow on that is going to be something that's added to his headspace. And the long of the short is, I don't think these surroundings right now, with as much change as is taking place just in the conference alone, forget about all the other implications, people calling for Dawkins' head and this and other that, like, I don't think any of that is particularly good for him in this case. As a freshman or as a new guy in a program, you get a lot of extra help in those kind of matters. And wherever he ends up, A, I wish him success, because I do think he is a good basketball player. B, I don't know that his best opportunity to get right next season is here. I don't think this is the best space for him to achieve that.
Eric?
Just disappointing across the board. Just disappointing. I mean, everything Kyle says is accurate. I'm not going to argue with it, but it's still disappointing. Like, that was going to be a part of your future. And, whatever happened. I mean, we could spend hours talking about it. I don't think the roster was a fit for him in some ways. I think, to your point, he put too much pressure on himself. Probably thinking about things like the NBA when you got to block that out. That's one of the things that BJ Taylor said. Men's basketball has so many things in their heads, egos, like people talking pros and pro ball and all this stuff, whereas the women's don't have that stuff to worry about. They kind of play more as a unit. And I think in men's right now, especially now, with all the shoe companies and everybody in their ear, sometimes you just kind of, get not focused on what you need to be focused. So it's disappointing because I think he was going to be a big part of this future with Darius Johnson and the Hendricks boys, which are coming. So it's just a bummer. I really liked him a lot. He was fun to watch, and it was disappointing it didn't work out this year. And I agree with you, Kyle. I think he'll flourish wherever he goes. I think this is a lesson for him. We forget these are 19, 20-year-olds. We think they're robots. They're not.
Right.
Life happens. You get hit in the face. We could agree or disagree whether moving, people leaving after a year or two is a good thing or not. Back in the day, you used to have to stick it out. Now you don't. We'll see where he ends up. Some people think he could go back home to UNF Jacksonville. I think he's better than that. And I think he'll end up at a better program than that, but we'll see.
Or maybe he'll enjoy being a big fish in a pond, man. Listen, it could go either way. You make great points.
Maybe.
Yeah.
All right. Xavier Rhodes, he didn't play this year. He was a 6'8" power forward, was a 3-star in Rivals coming out from Dallas. Didn't really hear much about him in terms of many of the details. But redshirted. PJ Edwards is sticking around. He was another freshman who redshirted. And then Dre Fuller, of course, well, he walked in senior night anyway. So that was kind of expected. So really you have 5 guys returning, at least as of this instant. We're recording this on Thursday, March 24th, just after noon Eastern. And those 5 guys, Darren Green, CJ Walker, Darius Johnson, Ty Freeman, Jameel Reynolds.
Not a bad starting 5 if you were forced to do that.
Right. And among those returners, I did the math. That's, of those 5 guys, that's about 50% of your foul shots, 50% of your points, 47% of your rebounds. Really the guy who's sort of the big loss is Mbake Jong because of his defensive presence. Like, you're losing a lot of rebounding and shot blocking there.
Sure.
But, again, that's something that, you can, Johnny's been pretty good, I think, in the transfer portal in terms of being able to fill the holes that he needs to. And, a lot of the, and of course, you're bringing back only 45% of your assists from last year, but most of that was Darius Perry. You knew he was going to be going, and we've seen how Darius Johnson has developed over the course of this year. So I'm not overly concerned about that because the trend line is going up on that. So, all that said, you still have a pretty decent core coming back with about 50% of your production. And Eric, like you were saying before, like, this is kind of going to be the rule, not the exception. Stephen Leonard and I had an argument on Twitter about he says that this is a, quote, full rebuild. Is this a full rebuild?
Define that.
It depends on what the roster. Yeah, it depends what the roster looks like. But what's your definition of a rebuild?
But I'm looking at this. You're getting 50% of your production back and basically a starting 5.
Yeah,
is that a full rebuild?
Well, and I'll say that and raise you this, gentlemen. Sorry, let me get this in real quick. The reason why it's impossible for it to be a full rebuild is 60% of your starting core is in place already, right?
Yeah.
Walker, DJ. Well, no, I can call him Darius again, and of course Darren Green. Right? That's 60% of a starting lineup, including the leading scorer. So no way in heck this is a full rebuild. That's crazy.
Yeah.
No offense, Mr. Leonard.
It depends. We got to see what the final roster looks like. There's going to be new. We're going to see what the final roster looks like. How many transfers come in? Does anybody else leave? Right? I mean,
100%, buddy. Yeah. No. And thank you for keeping me diligent on that, because I keep forgetting the NIL is a thing.
No, and the reason, because remember what we said in football a week after the Gasparilla Bowl. Man, this defense is going to be awesome. They return everybody. They're going to be great. Well, what happened? A bunch of guys left. Some left for the NFL draft that we didn't expect. Some left to transfer that we maybe didn't expect. Left again, man, we're in an unpredictable era right now.
Yeah.
No. But my point is, now this defense is very young. So we got to see where it is. I actually think it's a good. The good news is I don't think fans are going to have expectations for this team next year, and I'm fine with that. I think the expectations last year were over the top. I think they made this team look like they were the late. No, I don't think this team. I mean, this team will probably be picked on the second tier of the American, but that's okay. He's got to. The main thing is you got Darren Green back, you got Darius Johnson back, CJ Walker you think is back. We think. And then you add some pieces to that, and you go from there. And hopefully, I think you have a better fit basketball team. Again, the most overrated thing in basketball is when the coaches say they have depth. When they say they have depth, it means they don't have a marquee player. That means they just have a bunch of guys. And I think that's what we saw and we learned from this past year is, they had a lot of guys, but they didn't have the guy. Like the 2019 team, they had a guy. 2 guys. They had Aubrey Dawkins, BJ Taylor who could take over on the offensive end. They had Taco Fall who could take over on the defensive end. They didn't have that this past year, among other things. So, is it a rebuild? I don't know. It would depend. To Kyle's point, what's your definition of a rebuild?
Yeah, even as I asked that question, I'm saying that you'd have to work hard to find me interpretation of how this is a full rebuild.
I think my issue is with the word full.
Correct. I agree.
Yeah,
there is some rebuilding, but to Eric's point, this is the life we will live now. There's rebuilding every year now, 100%.
We're going to and we're going to be and I tweeted out that little grid that I put together of the starting of the returners and graduates and transfers and the returning production. So we'll see how that moves through. All right, student of the game, Kyle Nash. Appreciate you as always, class. Now you may be dismissed. So
make sure you do your homework, fellas.
Yes. All right, Kyle Nash. Thank you once again, Eric Lopez. Let's switch gears over to softball. Oh my God, have we got a series this weekend, Elo? My goodness gracious. Conference is finally starting for your UCF women's basketball. UCF softball team. I've got them stuck in my head. 26-7, 16-3 at home. Did what they had to do against Furman, ruled them twice, scored at least 8 runs in all 3 games. And now the real fun starts. They travel to Tampa Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 3-game set with the receiving votes, South Florida Bulls. And that means you get to face Georgina Korick, who has an ER. I think describing her earned run average as microscopic implies that it is actually visible to the naked eye, which that it may be possibly visible. It's not. She is the real deal, man. I'm trying to pull up these stats here real quick because it's mind blowing.
0.16 ERA for Georgina Korick.
Zero. Say that again for the folks in the back.
0.16. ERA. Okay. Number 1 in the country.
Because I'm seeing 0.14 on USF's.
Oh, that's right. She pitched Tuesday against Canisius. She got a shutout against Canisius on Tuesday, so she lowered it to 0.14.
22-1. She's got a whip of 0.46. She has given up 55 hits, 7 runs, only 3 of them earned in 148 innings. 229 strikeouts in 148 innings, and she's only walked 13. And opponents are hitting 109 against her. She is the best pitcher in the country. And so this UCF lineup has a hell of a challenge in front of it. Now, how many times do you think we're going to see Georgina, and what is this team and Jada Cody, who is the national leader in RBIs, going to do?
Well, I think you're going to see her all weekend. I think she's going to pitch in all 3 games, maybe 2 at minimum. She'll pitch there. She might come in relief in the 3rd game if she doesn't start the 3rd game. I think they're going to see a lot of her. It's a single game each day. I think that favors USF from that standpoint. They don't have to play a doubleheader. And she is the best pitcher in the sport. If I had to vote today, I would vote for her for National Player of the Year. I think that she's that good. They're a completely different team with her in the circle than when she's not. When she's not pitching, they lose to teams like St. Thomas. But when she's pitching, they can beat teams like Oklahoma State and Michigan like they've done this year. And she's a difference maker. Now, the good news for UCF is they are a team that have had success against her in the past. They beat her twice last year. Granted, one was at home and one was at the conference tournament semifinals. And the key for this offense is they're going to put the ball in play. Where you mentioned the strikeouts for Korick, where she dominates teams is where you can't put the ball in play. She just overpowers you. And where UCF last year, one of the things they were able to do is put the ball in play because they have a lot of diversity in their offense. We mentioned Jada Cody leading the nation in RBIs. As I brought this up, a rare occurrence in the history of college softball. You will have the nation's leader in RBIs going up against the nation's leader in ERA. That has not happened in decades. So that is significant. But it's not just Jada Cody. You have Shannon Doherty. I think the keys to this series is going to be Kennedy Searcy and Janisha Rowe, the 2 hitters in front of Jada Cody. They need to get on base, cause some havoc, because that's going to force Korick to throw the ball up in the zone. If they're not getting on, they can pitch around Cody and Doherty and go from there. And that's going to be the chess match between these 2 teams. Something that Coach Sidney Ball Malone has told us on this past weekend. They know what the elephant in the room is. It's Georgina Korick.
Well, I think elephant in the room is we're going to face the best pitcher in the nation with ERA and whatever, but it's one person on the team, right? And so it matches up very well with our offense. Like, that's one of our biggest things, and we have not just one pitcher, we have a whole pitching staff. And so I just love how we're really, sharpening up our tools and getting ready to play our game, regardless of who's in the circle, what team is out there, what uniform they're wearing. We're just going to continue to keep playing our game.
And so that's Coach Ball, and that's the mindset. They feel it's their team is better than one player. We'll see what happens. UCF, obviously, is ranked in all the polls. They're 15 in the RPI. It's weird that this is the first time these two teams have ever started conference play against each other. They're usually playing in the middle or at the end of the year, which I personally like better. But it's a significant series. The national media's grabbed onto it. D1 Softball's written about it. I had Ryan Urquhart, who's going to call that series on the Inner Circle podcast. So you have to check that out. But it's a big series. I think the pressure's on actually on South Florida because if they lose this series, they might get into the bubble. Whereas UCF will be fine either way, but this is obviously a huge ramifications from a conference championship, which is the goal for both of these teams. Remember, of the 7 previous regular season titles that have been awarded in the American Conference in softball, 5 of them have gone to either UCF or USF. That's what's at stake this weekend. I think the winner of this series, obviously, with Wichita State also to be considered, is the favorite to win the league moving forward.
All 3 games are going to be on ESPN Plus. Friday at 4, Saturday 6, Sunday at 4. How much of an advantage does South Florida have playing at home?
Big. Put it to this way. Center field, it's 230 feet. Not 220, not 200. It's a bigger park. I believe it's 210 to left center and right center. It's a pitcher's park. So that's how they like to play it. That's why they have good numbers. They've had great pitchers there. The good news for UCF, though, they're not solely dependent on the power game. They can play small ball as well. But it's a big park. Interestingly, for UCF, a lot of these players, this will be their first trip there. Remember, they didn't play in 2020 when they were supposed to play there in Tampa. Now, UCF did play in that facility against Tennessee and FIU in a tournament that USF hosted there in 2020, but they've never played USF in a 3-game series there. And I've been told, talking to Ryan Urquhart, who will be calling that series on ESPN Plus, with our friend Allison Kime, who's the analyst over there, it's going to be sold out. It's going to be sold out over there. It's going to be packed. This is a series that everybody circles. When you look at the WAR and I-4 rivalries, softball is right at the top because this rivalry goes back to 2005 when they faced off in the NCAA tournament for the first time. So this has been ongoing for about 17 years. It's right up there with probably women's soccer right now and women's basketball since Abe has arrived. So it's intense. It's big. It's going to be exciting. You mentioned it. Can UCF wear out Georgina Corrick? I think they're going to try to take some pitches, try to wear her out. But the other side of the story here, playing game, because South Florida offensively, what they want to do is get on base, steal bases, and manufacture runs. They're a very old school softball team. This is a series, whoever has the lead has got a big advantage. If USF has a 2-run lead, that's a big order, a tall ask to come back against Cork in that building. But if UCF has the lead, USF's going to have a hard time coming back as well.
All right. All 3 games. Now we're getting to that sort of the schedule kind of levels off now that you're in conference play, right? You usually play 3 games in 3 days. You got the couple, and then you got that midweek against Florida in Gainesville on Wednesday too, Eric. Like that's another one that you got to keep an eye out now for. If
a top 10 team in the country, top 10 team in the country, and then by the way, they host Virginia Tech, who's number 5 in the country, with Keely Richard. If you don't believe Georgina Corrick is the best pitcher in the country, the answer might be Keely Richard. So, the next stretch is going to be strong there. That Virginia Tech series is big, but that's how they like it. And that's why they have an RPI of 15. And I will say this, Jeff, if this team has success in the next 7 games, Virginia Tech, Florida, South Florida, let's say they go 5-2, something like that, 4-3, this team will be in the mix to host a regional.
Are we sure about that? I mean,
they'll be in the
whole discussion about women's basketball. Are you sure we're going to host a regional?
No, I said we would be in the conversation. We would have the resume. We still get screwed. So because we don't know what an airport is. We can't fly teams to an airport. Can't fly teams in an airport.
2 airports on either side of this campus, for crying out loud. All right.
I know.
Let's see.
The most asinine role.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. UCF against South Florida down in Tampa. Tampa Knights, man, this is a good series you want to go on. You want to catch probably, would you say this is a or maybe the marquee series in college softball this weekend?
It's up there with UCLA. Washington is playing this weekend in the Pac-12 and LSU Arkansas in the SEC. I think those are the three that probably, this one, especially with the Cody Corrick storyline, is getting a lot of play. And I'm very jealous of Ryan Urquhart and Allison Kahn because they get to call 3 games. So, all
right. Well, we'll be watching them on ESPN Plus. Stick around. We come back. Bryson Turner will be here to talk, give us a little bit of an update on baseball as they roll through their schedule here, and they're approaching conference play as well. And pull together a few other odds and ends here. Stick around. We'll be right back. We are back here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez with you, and joining us now, Bryson Turner, to talk about our grab bag of UCF sports from around the world of the spring sports as we roll into baseball. But we're going to start with that here. As UCF baseball's at 13-8, they got 1 out of 3 against UCF Greensboro. UNC Greensboro over the weekend after they got that win over Miami. Kind of a bummer because they had some injuries to the pitching staff. Connor Stain left his game. Hunter Patterson left his game. Apparently they're going to be okay, but they were able to salvage out that one win before getting beat 10-2 by number 7 Florida State in Tallahassee on Tuesday. They were supposed to play yesterday, but that game got canceled. So that takes us to the final non-conference weekend of the season, with UCF facing off against Samford Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 6-6-1 respectively. But like we said, a little bit of a slide here, Bryson, as things have kind of come back to earth. Lost 3 out of 4 over this past weekend, but like we were saying, like that banged up pitching staff may have had something to do with it. Hopefully they're back, but what's the latest on Connor Stain and Hunter Patterson?
Well, we don't know what exactly Hunter Patterson had. We know Coach Lovelady didn't really know either. Said he didn't really know either after the game. He had no update on Connor after the game, and having had a chance to speak with him since. But the good news is, as far as Connor Stain is concerned, he has back spasms, but the word is that Patterson was removed for just cautionary reasons. So it looks like there's nothing serious, but considering what happened with Connor, I can understand why they wouldn't want to take too many chances with Hunter, because I think honestly, if this weekend with UNC Greensboro proved one thing, is it exposed just how much this team is going to probably have to rely on Stain and Patterson in order to succeed, because this offense has not really been able to get much going. I mean, obviously the loss of Nick Romano hurts it even more, but Jeffrey Pena is the only batter to have with a substantial number of at-bats to have over 300 batting average, and he has 365. All the credit in the world goes to Jeffrey Pena. He was the only batter that was able to do much of anything against UNC Greensboro, so credit to him. But a big thing that Lovelady mentioned about Greensboro, though, is that they're a really well-hitting team. Like right now, UNC Greensboro is ranked 62nd in the country in batting average, and considering that they had to face a UCF bullpen that was being stretched to its limit, it's understandable why they ended up blowing the lead that they did in the first game, which, I mean, obviously they had to suspend the game and that had an impact, but you had to go through your bullpen the whole time. So that didn't really help either. And then of course you have game 3 where it was really close, and David Litchfield just didn't really have the best outing on Saturday, which led to that. So I think that honestly, it's just the same old story as far as what we've said in previous weeks. The offense is still a concern that definitely needs to be addressed. And then but the biggest thing we learned is the dependence that they're probably going to need to have on Connor Stain and Hunter Patterson. And basically, we can't have another Colton Gordon situation again like we did last year, or else we might get into some trouble. The good news is, though, is that going into Samford, they have a batting average that's a little more on par with what UCF has. Samford's currently ranked 187th in the country in batting average, while UCF is 165th. So as long as the UCF pitching remains healthy and the bullpen is able to get rested back up after a very strenuous week, then I think Samford should be a very solid opponent and very winnable.
Well, about Samford, they've already played a team from the American this year in Memphis and gotten swept in 3 straight. And Memphis isn't exactly, the greatest of shakes in the American, at least not traditionally. But they come in at 10-7 so far. By the way, UCF, it's time that we actually start looking at RPI, and UCF's RPI right now 87th, not quite where you want it to be. They're going to have to find a way to boost that here somehow. As we look at Samford's RPI coming into this game, or coming into the series, they were at 118. So this is a series where UCF is going to have to take care of business in order to kind of hold serve as they get ready for conference play. Now, just a reminder for the future schedule, UCF has FAU at home on the 29th. That's Tuesday, before they start conference play at home against South Florida on March the 29th. So now we're getting ready. Now like we said, we talked in the previous segment about softball, how the schedule is going to kind of coast now. Well, now we're going to start seeing that with baseball as well. So, all right, I want to move over to track and field real quick as well, Bryson, because as we move to the outdoor season, the Knights Invite is coming up this week. 2 straight home meets for UCF. They had the Black and Gold Invitational last week. We didn't see Renaya Jones because she was taking the week off because she was at the National Indoor Championships. But as we move to the outdoor, what are we expecting to see Friday and Saturday here? And what did we see last week that was noteworthy?
All right. Well, last week the Knights ended up getting 1 gold medal thanks to Katie Pennell in the 800-meter run. So great job for Katie. We also then there were 10 silver and bronze medals to go around for the Knights. The highlights of which include Sierra Holback, who got 3rd place in the 100-meter dash, a new personal best for her at 11.4 seconds. And then she also got silver in the 200-meter dash, and she ended up earning AAC Track Athlete of the Week honors for that. So congratulations to Sierra. And then Valerie Lastra got the silver in the 3,000-meter run, breaking the school record for the event that she set herself exactly a year ago. And it's also the first ever sub 10-minute run in the event by a UCF athlete ever. She didn't have to break it by much. The previous record was like 10 minutes and like 0.58 seconds. So it was already close to begin with, but congratulations to Valerie Lastra for that. And yeah, it was a really solid week to begin. Sydney Turner also got 6th place in the 800-meter. Congratulations to her, McKenna Melville, and Alex Ward on getting the Order of Pegasus distinction. So
yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, I know.
Pegasus, the highest honor a student at UCF can receive, the Order of Pegasus.
So yeah, congratulations to them. I mean, McKenna's just raking it in all over the place. Can't wait to see it this fall. But now we go into this weekend where Renaya Jones makes her return. She's going to be competing in 2 events. I've just looked at the entry lists on start lists on halfmiletiming.com, which is where they do all the live updates. So the event to watch on Friday is going to be the 200-meter dash, where we're going to see Renaya, Sierra Holback, also Latasha Smith making her debut in this outdoor season as well. So that is slated to start at 6:30 p.m. on Friday. Then, of course, Renaya will also be competing in her signature event, the 100-meter hurdles, at 12:50 p.m. on Sunday.
Yeah. All right. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. Let's talk a little bit more tennis now.
Jeffrey, Jeffrey, I want to say, let me just say real quick, and women's tennis is going to be a good segue to this. We're in the middle of maybe the greatest year of UCF women's sports of all time. Like,
no doubt.
Valerie Lastra, who Bryson mentioned, in any other year, in any other era, would be talked about a lot more. But she's so under the radar because of Renaya Jones and what she's been doing. Valerie Lestre has had a heck of a start to her career as well. You look at what Jada Cody's doing in softball, but Kenna Melville, what she just got honored with in her career, it's kind of insane. Like, Jeff, like Bryson and I are talking about, the Bannies are going to be insane to pick these women's sports awards. I've never seen it this deep.
I don't know what we're going to do. Like, I really don't know what we're going to do for these awards this year.
You're not even talking about people like Diamond Battles to factor into that. I mean, the women's athletes in this year have absolutely been insane. It's going to be really hard come Bannies time.
So let's do that segue then. Let's talk about UCF women's tennis. They're 10-6 right now. Previously ranked 28, they've boosted themselves 10 spots in the polls to number 8, or the tennis rankings. They're not polls. The ITA tennis rankings to number 18. 1 spot behind USC, 2 spots behind Florida. They are 10-6 on the season and have won 3 in a row. What's the latest on the women's team? They had a huge win against a top 10 opponent last Sunday. Is that right?
Yes, indeed. Actually, all 3 of their wins came against ranked teams. BYU was ranked 69, Harvard was ranked 75, but the big win comes for Oklahoma State, who was ranked number 9. And I was following this matchup while the baseball game that day was going on, and it was quite the entertaining affair. Me and a fellow student journalist were kind of following it, and we're kind of very amused. So basically, Evgenia Levashova and Marie Mattel ended up defeating the number 38 ranked doubles pair in the country from Oklahoma State. And then Noel Sainova and Jaleesa Leslie were able to reel it in for the doubles win. And then it ended up coming down to the wire. Sophia Biole, credit to her, both her and Marie Mattel needed to win their matches in order to win. Oklahoma State was up 3-2 at that point. So UCF was backed up against the wall. They had to win the next 2. So Sophia Biole, she ended up coming back from being swept in the first set. Then she won the second set 7-5, which means she had to play a couple more breaks than the regulation for a normal set. And then she had to go do it again in the third set to win 7-6.
Yeah, then won that in a tiebreaker in the third too, 8-6 tiebreaker to win 7-6.
Yes,
and then you talked about Marie Mattel was playing number 82 Uno Urpana. She had to come back from down 1-0, and she played an 11-9 tiebreaker in the first, then came back and won 7-5, 6-4 to take the match. And that puts UCF right back within the top 20. They're at number 18. And they have Yale on Thursday and number 66 FAU on Sunday before they begin this 3-match stretch against American Athletic Conference opponents before they go to the American Athletic Conference tournament. And then they really have to hit the gas because after that it's NCAA time. So, I want to get
Mattel, by the way, she won AAC Women's Tennis Athlete of the Week honors for her performance as well,
and she deserved it after that.
Go ahead, Eric. By the way, the women's team is in position to make the NCAA tournament. NCAA tournament again, which, tennis, volleyball, softball, women's basketball. Yeah, it's crazy. What are we doing?
Now, we need to catch up on the men's team here because we talked about how they really are off to a rough start. They are 6-11, and yet, when you look at the rankings, it's kind of like the RPI. They're ranked 57th around a bunch of teams that actually have won 10 matches on the year. Now, obviously, they have to get better if they want to get into the NCAAs here without having to worry about the conference, but they got a key victory over number 67 FAU 4-1. They're playing number 38 SMU on Friday. And then that stretches. Then they go on the road for 3 conference matches at Tulane, at Tulsa, at Memphis to start the month of April before they finish up playing South Florida on April 16th, and then it's conference tournament time. So even though there are 5 matches under 500 right now, Bryson, are we getting ready to see this team heat up as they head down the stretch?
Well, that's really going to depend on these three upcoming matches because not only is SMU ranked, but so is Tulsa and Tulane. So these next 3 matches, I think, are going to be very telling on what we'll see for the rest of the season for the men's tennis team. The concern for me has always been their singles play. Their singles play has always been where they really seem to trip up lately, because doubles play has been very good. The combination of Trey Hildebrand, Bogdan Pavel, Leighton Cronhay, and Cooper White, in any permutation of those athletes, have done very well in doubles play. And Hildebrand and Pavel, who haven't really played with each other very much to start the season, they now have gotten back together and are now 4-0. 4-0 right now. They beat the number 35 ranked pair in the country from Illinois, and then in the FAU match they beat the number 41 ranked pair in the country. So they're still just as good as ever as they are in doubles play. And so if anything, I think we'll see it in maybe one individual doubles pair do very well in postseason play. But as far as the team is concerned, I would just watch that singles play, because they've never really been able to put it all together in singles play like women's tennis has. And I think that's the biggest thing we're going to have to watch as we head into conference play.
Yeah. Trey Hildebrand's been like drinking out of a fire hose this season. You know, he's 78th in the country in singles, and he and Bogdan Pavel are 35th in doubles. And Pavel, by the way, has also been busy because he's ranked twice in the doubles rankings, because his other pairing with Leighton Cronhay, like you were talking about, they're 42nd in the country in doubles. Oh, yeah. So yeah, it's kind of we're kind of approaching, right, Eric, now or never time for this team. We've seen them get off to slow starts before. They've dug themselves out of it. Now they got a real hole to dig out of.
Yeah, because they played a brutal schedule, and they just haven't won the close matches they won last year. The good news in tennis, the win-loss record is not as big of a deal. Like, if they can get to 500 but have their rankings are in the top 40, they can get into the tournament. Yeah. But to Bryson's point, it's going to the next 3 matches will tell the story. Either they win 2 or 3 of those matches, or 3 and really make a push, or they lose 2 out of those 3 and pretty much kind of kiss their season goodbye. So this next 3 matches is their season in a lot of ways.
Yeah. All right. Let's wrap it up with rowing. Bryson, this is the first time we had the chance to talk about rowing this year, because they started their season last week at home at the Intercollegiate Rowing Center. That's out on Lake Pickett. I did a feature on that facility. That's a beautiful facility. It started off against UConn and Jacksonville, and this is the chance for Becky Kramer and her crew to get back up to the top of the American after getting knocked off the perch. But, they got off to a pretty good start last Friday against UConn and Jacksonville, didn't they?
Oh, yes, indeed. Little bit of a delayed start. There was a 40-minute weather delay to start things off, but they ended up sweeping all five races, and from what the recap has told me, almost all of them were won by over 15 seconds. So I would say that is a very solid start for these rowers to get on, winning all 5 races. Excellent job. I think that you like you said, they got knocked off the perch, and so I think this is a very good rebound for them.
Yep, and they go to the UVA Invite in Charlottesville, Virginia, hotbed of college rowing in Charlottesville, on Saturday, this coming Saturday. So we'll see how they come up from that before they go to Sarasota next weekend for the Sunshine State. We should send Drew out to the Sunshine State Invite in Sarasota, shouldn't we, Eric?
I think so. Send him to softball, too, while we're at it.
Yeah,
although, no, wait. The last time he covered UCF, USF won. Never mind. Don't say it.
No. Okay, good point. Yeah,
the NCAA championships are going to be in Sarasota.
Okay, let's not send him to those either. So that you can have UCF actually finish pretty good. All right.
Sorry, Drew.
Hey, Bryson Turner. Women's athletics. Don't count out women's rowing, because they're among these UCF women that have killed it this season.
Well, what did we say in previous shows, Eric? Right? UCF rowing set the standard. 5 straight conference titles. Yeah. Nobody is more dominant than Becky Kramer.
Yeah, and last year it ran into a buzzsaw in SMU, so I'll be curious how they bounce back this year and try to go for that conference championship. I mean, there's a chance that every women's team makes the NCAA tournament except, women's soccer, which was right in the mix at the end. Yeah. Cross country, obviously, but they had a good year for their standards. Track is hard to, I think track's going to be a factor. They've already won an indoor championship. This is a historic year of women athletics.
Good year.
Yeah. They are dominated the men's sports, clearly.
Yeah. Hey, UCF's the place to be. We're going to support everybody as best we can because, like, listen, it's, you guys have known this. We've been doing this show for 5 years now, and, we're proud to see every UCF athlete succeed in whatever sport that they're at. It doesn't matter what the level is, what sport it is, that's what we want to do. And I know that the fans who listen to our show appreciate that, and we will continue to do that. Bryson Turner, it's Bryson Turner on Twitter. Thank you, Bryson.
Thanks for having me.
All right. And that will do it for us here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. You can follow us at UCF Banneret _SBN. You can follow me at Jeff _Sharon. You can follow Eric Lopez Elo. Thanks as well to Kyle Nash, the SOTG on Twitter for the student of the game. And another week rolls in with, obviously we're bummed about the end of basketball, but hey, once again,
we don't want to thank Storrs, Connecticut ever. No, bye-bye, Storrs.
Ever.
Can we trade you for Toronto?
I don't want to
ever
go to Storrs, Connecticut for anything ever again as long as I live. But we do have to end on. I'm not sure what's worse, Storrs, Connecticut, or Tulsa, Oklahoma. One last note.
Depends on your perspective.
What kind of weather do you like the least? We want
right, hurricanes or snow? I actually rather have snow.
Tornadoes. They don't get hurricanes in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Eric. It's the only hurricane.
So why are they called the hurricane?
The only hurricane that ever hits Tulsa, Oklahoma, is the Tulsa Golden Hurricane. That's it. Yeah. So, but as we finish up, congratulations once again to UCF women's basketball. What a year for them! Congrats to Coach Abe and her staff. Job well done. And you know what? They're not done yet. There are still so many things that this program has yet to achieve that are still in front of it. And we appreciate being along for the ride for all of it. Congratulations on an amazing season. That'll do it for us here at Black and Gold Banneret. For all of us here, I am Jeff Sharon saying thank you for listening. You can catch our podcast wherever you get your podcast if you're listening to us on an Apple or Android device. And of course, don't forget to follow us, UCF Banneret _SBN on Twitter. For Eric, for Bryson, for Kyle, I'm Jeff. Thanks for listening. We will catch you next week.